Ladies and gentlemen of the gaming community, let me come out here first and apologize. I hope everybody here accepts my apology and that we can move forward with this video. Welcome to my first ever video game rating, I would say. I think about it like a moist meter. God, at this point, it just feels like I'm just stealing everything from Moist Critical or some ordinary gamers or something like that. I promise I'm not, but so there are some games out there that are world renowned. Everyone's played them. Everybody knows what you're talking about when you say Legend of Zelda, or even when you say Pokemon. And for me, one of these games was the Batman Arkham series. I had never played a single one. And though they were free on PlayStation, it just never caught my interest whatsoever. And this game released a while back, like in the 2000, I don't even know, but it was for the PlayStation 4. But it wasn't until I sat my fat ass on my bed, looked at my screen, and said, why don't we try something different today? Let's play some Batman. So I downloaded that bad boy and loaded it up, and let me tell you something. Wow. Just wow. Now, I'm not done with the game just yet. I have a ton of side missions, and I'm at 79% done with the main story. But before I finish, I had to make this video because, damn, it's good. One thing I have a problem with, and even with the new Spider-Man game, is that it's just too soft. It's too safe. The first Spider-Man game had terrorist attacks, people died, things like that. It made the game great. You know, the superhero had consequences for his actions and consequences for just being the superhero. But in Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2, it just wasn't there. Way too safe. Story was too short. Not enough side missions. It was just a little bit bland. The traversal in Spider-Man 2 is amazing. I will say that, but there's no point doing that when your game's only 8 hours long. Now, I don't want to get off track as I'm not talking about Spider-Man here. Let's get back to the Bruce Wayne. Now, before I continue, I will let you know that all video games are subjective, whether you like it or not. It's up to you. I like this one. If you don't, then let me know in the comments and I will not respond. But I am not a professional video game critiquer. That's why it's called Amateur Hour. So, yeah, let me do my thing. So this is the first one I played, Arkham Knight. I'm pretty sure it's the last one in the series because of how everything is going right now. But from what I can tell, in the last game, Batman killed the Joker. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now because this game's been out forever. Spoilers are gonna be here. If you don't want to hear them and you want to play yourself, go ahead. But I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm sorry, no spoiler warning. I'm gonna say it now. Spoiler warning. So if you do want to play this game, exit out, go play it, and then come back. So the game starts off with the Joker being cremated. Shortly after that, you start to realize that the main character, or the main antagonist, I should say, of this game is going to be the Scarecrow. Which, if you don't know what he does, he just releases a... Well, I'm not just going to say just. This is what I'm getting from the game. I am not a massive Batman fan, nor have I ever read the comics or know much about it. I've watched the movies that come out in the movies, like at the movie theaters, and that's it. But in this game, he just wants to release a fear toxin that's going to make people hallucinate and want to kill each other. And that's what he wants to do. As Batman, you have to infiltrate the Ace Chemical facility and make sure that the blast radius is reduced to just inside or barely outside the chemical plant. Now, as you do that, Batman, he is infected with the chemical. He is the first person infected, but he does survive the blast. Obviously, he survives the blast because this is like the first 10 minutes of the game. If he died and the game ended here, then I don't know what I would have done. But this thing says 5 stars on PlayStation, so it had to be like he made it out alive. And from there on out, it honestly, to me, I'm going to compare this to the Spider-Man game. Has some of the most fun or interesting side missions that I've played in a superhero game in a while. From things like taking out watchtowers, to taking out bombs that have been planted in the middle of the street, to wiping out private militia groups that are run by the Arkham Knight. If you didn't know, like me, I thought the Arkham Knight was Batman, but no, it's Batman's villain in this game. There's multiple villains. Is called the Arkham Knight. I had no idea. I am stupid. I know now. All the side missions are relatively packed with action, as well as the main missions, although at first it does start pretty high and then comes back down. It does build up pretty quickly with high stakes. And a good example of that is Oracle, the person who helps out Batman in the whatever, like, watchtower they do all the comms from, which is also Officer Gordon's daughter, is kidnapped pretty early in the game, and you have to find out where she is and who took her. All this detective work, which, by the way, the detective work in this game is phenomenal. Ultimately, you do find Barbara being held captive in a little cell with glass walls, and spoiler alert, she does commit unaliving. She deletes her own save file, which, I mean, I've never played a Batman game, but I didn't know it was going to be like this. So whenever that happened, I was hooked immediately. Just hooked, and I was in it for the ride. Why? Because the hero actually lost something. Unlike, like I said, I'm going to be comparing this to Spider-Man. Obviously, he loses Ant-Man in the first game, but there's nothing to fight for after because you already saved the city. I know you could obviously say that about Jefferson Davis earlier in the game, but you weren't playing as Miles yet. Yeah, you got some of those, like, walking missions as Miles, but you weren't Miles yet, so you couldn't fight for his dad. Moving on to stuff that's not, like, related to death and such. Interactions with the players, I mean characters, honestly, is pretty good. I think Batman could probably speak a little bit more, but, you know, that's just how Batman is, so you can't blame him. And from very early in the game, you get because Batman is hallucinating from the Scarecrow fear toxin, Joker actually starts appearing, like, in front of you or behind you while you're playing, and he works as a great comic relief tool for everything. There's a point in the game where he has a little song about Batman's parents being dead, and all Batman does is kind of just stand there menacingly while Joker sings the song infinitely.
I drove you round the bend and I'm laughing. I'm with you till the end and I can't stop laughing. I killed all your friends and I can't stop laughing.
And I welcome that type of stuff. I think it's really funny. I think it's like, it's not too much to the point where it takes away from the game. It's in the right spots at the right moment. And the one thing I could compare it to is Dragon Ball Z Abridged, where Piccolo absorbed Nail, and Nail was in his conscious for the rest of the series.
I know, right? Big Bang Attack.
I don't know. This coming from Mr. Special Beam Cannon?
Hey, why don't you try coming up with a better name for an attack?
How about Devil Drill Beam?
What about Spiral Death Beam?
Doom Laser?
Rail Beam?
Nail Gun?
Shit, that's good.
And you can tell they put a lot of time into that, because you could look at the Joker and he's doing something, talking about something. You look away from the Joker and look back and he's doing something completely different and talking about something completely different. And as you get further in the game, he starts hallucinating a little bit more by enemies that you're capturing all of a sudden turning into the Joker. And when you're just fighting enemies normally, like in normal gameplay, just on the street like that, you can find little Jokers up and around the streets that you can just shoot at and just knock out, which I think is a little fun touch. Later towards the end of the game, the Joker, honestly, he starts to feel like a right-hand man to the Batman, which is kind of weird to say, but it gives you like a one can't function without the other, you know, like a peanut butter and jelly type thing. And the Joker gets infinitely darker, but as dark as he always is, he always does give you a chance, I would say, to do some stuff. There's times in the games, I can only think of one right now, where you're meant to do something and the Joker can give you kind of like a time loop, if you didn't get his hints. And I'll drop that example, I guess, right now, because what's the point of me saying that if I'm not going to give the example? Once Robin finds out that Batman is infected with the fear toxin, Batman had one more cell opened up just for him so he could lock himself away so he'd be so everybody else could be safe. Robin wants to lock him up, and as Batman, you walk right in. But right before you walk in, there's a little blue light on top of Robin, which is supposed to be the dodge feature. The first time I did not see it whatsoever, so I walked right into the cage. The Joker after that does a play-by-play reenaction of how he killed Jason Todd, the first Robin, who was now replaced by Tim, the now Robin in Arkham Knight. And once the Joker lets you out of that cell, you walk out, you look at, Tim, the old Robin, and the Joker starts talking behind you. You look back at him, and all of a sudden he turns into Robin. You start walking back to him, and the blue light flickers again. If you walk in, the Joker will call you a dumbass and say, let's do it again.
Well, I bet you thought I wasn't coming back that time. Now it seems you're struggling with the subtext, Bat, so let me spell it out. Lock yourself up, and Tim Drake will be Jason Todded. The bird boy needs to be put in his cage.
If you keep doing it, same thing's gonna happen, but I did learn. It turns out if you press Y or triangle, you actually put Robin in the cage and then go out yourself. Which, if you understood that, I'm sorry, but it's like 3 in the morning. I'm trying not to cuss. I'm sorry. 3 in the morning, and my mind is all jumbled up. I don't write a script, so this is just me. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is going to be the combat and upgrades. Honestly, I think the upgrade system in this game is awesome. I think it has super useful things. It doesn't have anything that kind of feels, useless. There's a lot of different ways to get skill points, and the game really makes you feel it whenever you upgraded the wrong thing. Combat-wise, I would say it's kind of like Spider-Man, but obviously, the Spider-Man combat is a little bit more polished because it was released at a later date. The Batman combat is a little bit more brutal, but I love that. At times, it does feel like you're just button mashing, but there's also times where they throw like 4 or 5 different enemy types at you, and then it actually feels like you are playing a Street Fighter game, and you have to be good at the game, or else you just will not proceed with the mission. And because Batman is, at the end of the day, just a regular human being, or at least that's what you think, because sometimes Batman pulls up to these like metal vents or steel vents and rips them right off the wall. So I'm like torn if he's just like superhuman or just a rich guy in a suit. I have no idea, but it's more badass the way when you just don't think about it. The only thing I will say is that the dodging isn't like Spider-Man. In Spider-Man, regardless of what kind of animation you're doing, you can dodge at any moment in time. That's just simply not the case in Batman. If you're about to get hit and you go into another animation of you throwing a punch, you are going to get hit. No ifs, ands, or buts, you will get hit. Most of the time it doesn't really happen because, it's a very small window that you have to be in order to be hit. But if you're in there, you're going to get hit. Other than that, I think you should be good. I think all the combos and everything is really good. I think the fact you can do takedowns with your Batmobile is pretty sick. And you can also do dual team takedowns with other characters in the game. And that's also one thing I wanted to point out real quick. There are a plethora of other characters in this game, from Catwoman to Nightwing, Robin, and I forgot what the name of the guy who looks like he's like an Assassin's Creed type Batman. But he's in the game, and as of now, that's all I know. But I don't know. I still have a little bit to go, so maybe there could be more. And hopefully, whenever I'm done here, I'm gonna finish this game, and I'll probably let you guys know how I went and how I feel towards the end of it. That is it for the things that I did like. Now let's talk about the things that I don't like, because no game is perfect. Now the gliding, I wish I could compare the gliding to Spider-Man, but Obviously, I can't compare it to Spider-Man 2 because Spider-Man 2 came out so much later than this game. So they could have probably studied this gliding, some other gliding, something else, but when you glide as Batman, it is very slow. Like, oh my god, it is so slow. Honestly, and when you take the Batmobile, sometimes it can be slow too because you just run into 45 different like enemy types or vehicles or tanks or something else that needs to be done. Maybe you'll even run into a cop being chased by two other criminals that you need to save. So sometimes it can take you a while to get to your next mission. And if you go over the rooftops, then there are times where it takes forever because there aren't buildings everywhere. Sometimes you gotta take the glide from 100 or freaking 300 feet, and you're almost hitting the floor until you can catapult. And what is that freaking bat thing that he uses till he can zip up and then get more air? Like, I feel so stupid right now. I am so sorry. Everybody, please forgive me. But yeah, like the pace in the gliding is only fast whenever you first zip off a building, and then it just significantly goes down, and it makes everything just super boring because sometimes you got to go from one mission directly to another, and it's like over 1,000 meters you gotta cover. And at some points in the game, you can't even take the Batmobile because some of the bridges are actually closed off, so Batman can't get the Batmobile inside. So you gotta glide, and it's just a pain. Another thing I will say is the gadgets. And again, like this is like the 50th time I've done it. Compared to Spider-Man, at least the first Spider-Man. In Spider-Man, there's a ton of gadgets that can like incapacitate an enemy. In this one, there's only gadgets that kind of make life easier, but there's no gadgets that incapacitate anyone. Unless you count the explosive gel, but you have to get down onto the field, spray it on the floor or on the wall, and then get that enemy to move close to the gel so you can make it explode. But that's pretty tough in and of itself. I also do think the Batmobile could use a little bit of work. At first I thought it was fine, but as you start playing the game, you start realizing, this is pretty hard to control. And that's mainly when you're like in regular Batmobile mode, not in battle mode. I think battle mode is one of the coolest things ever. If you don't know what that is when he turns his car from a regular on the street car with his tires facing straight, his car turns into like a quad thing, and he just he can rotate, he can strafe and shoot missiles or whatever, and that's sick. That is sick. But yeah, some of the missions where you have to chase Firefly throughout the city. If I could compare it again, if any of you guys played Spider-Man, it's kind of like in the first game where you had to chase Shocker, and it is extremely hard to navigate the city that is always raining, it's always dark, it's pretty gray, and it's like everything is always everywhere. So debris on the floor, cars everywhere, it's extremely hard to drive. So driving or gliding, you are pretty much going to be miserable like 80% of the time. There's obviously times where maybe you can just take a chill pill. When you're gliding, there are tons of stuff that you're going to see, like military watchtowers or people that you can fight, stuff like that. And it's a good way to like get your mind off gliding. But at the end of the day, it's like, now you're going to take even longer to get to your mission. But yeah, honestly, I think that's pretty much it for the stuff that I don't like. Now back to glazing this game a little bit. This game is like probably one of the most addicting games I've played in the last, I don't know, probably 4 years. I have been glued to the sticks for 5 days straight playing this game. Almost everything it does is phenomenal. I think the things that it does right way overshadow the things that it does wrong, because you're not always gliding, you're not always in the Batmobile. And you know what? Frankly, if they fix that stuff, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Like, you can even see my cup right here that my mom bought me. If this game had better traversal, it would be better than Spider-Man. But honestly, I don't think it's there. I don't think it has, the chutzpah to beat the Spider-Man game, but this gets a pass because it was made so much earlier to Spider-Man. Like I said, Insomniac could have studied this game and made it better for their game, so there's no point in giving it a harsh ranking for that. But honestly, plugging it into my rating system, I think I'm going to give this game a solid 9 out of 10. Combat's great. There's, so many things are great with the story and its elements and the little Easter eggs and stuff like that. I wish more games were like this. And it's definitely going to be a game I'm going to be playing twice, maybe even 3 times. It's addicting, it's fun, it's dark like me, it's funny unlike me. I think it does a lot of stuff well with very little things wrong. And with all that being said, thank you for everybody for watching my first ever amateur hour video game ranking video, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.